It's been a while, and so we're back to calling out bad photoshops on Instagram versus reality. If you're new here, this is the segment on the channel where we delve deeper into how some of these Michelangelo sculpted bodies that you see on Instagram are really created in Photoshop. A quick disclaimer that this video is meant to be informative and I'm not trying to harm or injure anyone's brand. We have quite a simple case of the Liquify tool. A quick refresher on how it works. It turns your picture into a function map and lets you move around pixels like a thick, heavy soup. These distortions that you create in the soup are then transferred over to the real image. In her case, flattening the stomach and sticking out her butt distorts the pixels in the background too, creating these wonky lines. Now, trying to make something perfectly straight again while maintaining perspective is incredibly difficult to do, so even if you wanted to fix the background, she likely wouldn't be able to. Apart from the clearly messed up stares, the Liquify tool also creates blur zones, which are an example of image artifacts left behind from any kind of manipulation work. As pixels become stretched out and compressed to fit the canvas size, they lose their resolution. Imagine this is a pixel map, and this big circular obstruction is my brush. Notice how it distorts sharply and compresses the lines closest to the circle the most. This creates the most blur, and as the lines distort less and less further out, the blur goes down. That's what you're seeing here in these blur zones. So if you're unsure that there's any Liquify tool shenanigans going on, look for regions of sudden blur, especially near the waist, the hips, the breast, and the butt. Moving on, we have a different technique used here. She has used a selective blur filter to smoothen out her pores. Unfortunately, many people still believe that the right combination of foundation can completely erase skin texture, which simply isn't true. Smooth skin like this, not blemish-free but smooth actual skin, is created with a blur filter. Now, a blur filter is a general umbrella term for a group of tools that blend pixels together to reduce skin resolution while still retaining color and hue. That's why this edit looks more natural than some of the other ones we've seen in the past. A big giveaway is her neck. You can pinpoint exactly where she stopped using the tool, likely because it was done on a phone and her fingers didn't have the ability to get into the finer edge details, so she likely just stopped a finger width before. A better way to edit is to use your desired airbrush tool and then set the fill, not the opacity but the fill, to 50% so that it's essentially applying 50% strength and leaves some texture visible. This last one isn't really aimed at Gabby Hanna. It's more to show how big of a difference the submental, so this underjaw region, makes to your facial aesthetic. Gabby is pretty open about editing her photos, so that's not really the point here. If I bring up the submental in the Liquify tool, it de-ages her by a good couple of years. This submental to cervical angle is really important in facial aesthetics, and therefore in photo editing too. In one study, this slightly above 90-degree angle was deemed the most attractive, which is what we're trying to recreate here. Showing that you know certain aesthetic parameters greatly improves your effectiveness, skill, and net value as an editor, meaning that you can charge more and work for better clients. If you'd like to learn more about facial aesthetics, then there's two separate series to learn from on the channel here. This is a really bad photo to try editing on because it's blown out from excess background light, and so any pixels that are moved brings along a heap of diffused light with it, which makes certain parts look wafer thin, like here. This picture on the right is more ideal because it's darker, and so any Liquify adjustments brings shadows along with it. Since the light source is directly above her, the shadow is basically her outline, and this allows the editor to simultaneously edit two things in one motion. She's definitely tucked in her cervical point, which is the point between the throat and the jaw, because there's a cluster of darker pixels here that shouldn't be able to be seen normally. The second clue is the blur zone. It might be very difficult to see depending on your resolution and screen, but take my word for it, it's a big circular splotch of disturbed pixels on her jaw. Again, I don't want to fault Gabby for this, it's actually a really well done job, and the edits are quite minimal. The best photos are the ones that focus on angle, lighting, and composition first, and then require minimal adjustment in post-processing, like this one. Without the photo on the left, I would have never considered looking there in the first place. That brings another episode to a close. This week's episodes are quite short because we're getting ready to launch the Kuz Facial Aesthetics Report with the 100k video, and with that being said, do subscribe or she'll be at the foot of your bed tonight.